dawn. Dawn woke up from beside handsome Tithonus and went and carried light to all of the mortals and the immortals. And Zeus, the son of Cronos, he sent savage conflict down beside the fast ships of the Achaeans, and she came right into the middle of the fleet, carrying the signs of war in her hand. Here she was at Odysseus's big-bellied black ship, right in the middle, so that both those at the tents of Ajax, the son of Telamon, and those at the tents of Achilles could hear her, because they had drawn up their ships all the way on the far edges because they trusted most in their manliness and the strength of their hands. So here the goddess let out her great and terrible shout, and she threw strength down into the chest of each man. So now every man's heart was for war and for battle without end. Now it became sweeter for all of them to fight and to go into battle, much sweeter than going home to their own countries in hollow ships. And Agamemnon, the son of Atreus, he shouted for all of the Achaeans. Right there, please. Right there. Thank you very much. He shouted for all of the Achaeans to arm themselves. And he himself, he sank into the shining armor. First, he put the very nice shin guards on his shins. They fastened around the ankles with silver. Next, he put a breastplate on his chest. It was from Cinyras. Cinyras gave it to him as a guest gift. Well, it's because even in Cyprus, they had heard the huge fame of Agamemnon, the son of Atreus, that he had gathered all of the Achaeans, and they were about to sail to Troy. So that's why he had given him this breastplate as a gift, a favor for the king. Okay, so the breastplate itself, it's got 10 stripes of cobalt. Some dark blue, maybe it's lapis lazuli. It's fancy, right? Then there's 12 stripes of gold and 20 stripes of tin. And then it's got these blue snakes. Blue, I kind of want to say dragons though, because the Greek, dracontes, it's like, maybe they're dragons, that's more badass. Okay, and they're coming up from the chest towards the neck, and they curve like rainbows. You know how rainbows? The son of Cronos, Zeus, he kind of puts them in the sky whenever he wants to give signs to men. Yes, okay, so that's how that works. That's the breastplate. Then he slung his sword over his shoulder. It had a lot of very shiny golden nails in it, and a silver scabbard, and gold sword straps, because, you know, that's what you need. Then the shield. Now, this shield was super elaborate and kind of covered both sides of a guy, and it was also furious, as only a shield can be. It had 10 stripes, I think we can call them rings, of bronze, and 20 knobs, some kind of knobs made out of tin that shone almost white. And in the middle of each one of these knobs, there was more of that cobalt stuff, so you know it's good, right? And in the middle of it all, there's the terrible staring Gorgon. And on either side, there's fear and there's terror. And then the shield strap. Well, the shield strap is made of silver, and it's got more of these blue snakes, maybe dragons, that are woven in. But now out of each one, out of the neck, 3 heads grows out of each neck, and they twist in different directions. Then he put a helmet on. The helmet, it had 2 horns and 4 crests and a huge horse plume that nodded terribly from above. Then he balanced 2 massive spears, and they were both tipped in bronze that shone so much it went up to the sky. And then Hera and Athena thundered on either side of him, giving glory to Agamemnon, the king of Mycenae, with all the gold. And then each man gave an order to his charioteer to make sure that the chariots were in good order on the side of the ditch. And then the foot soldiers, they armed themselves and they rushed forward. And they let out a shout that was unquenchable. It went all the way up to the dawn. And the horses, once they had gotten in order, they followed quickly thereafter, across the trench. But Zeus, the son of Kronos, he sent down evil confusion now. And he made bloody drops drip from the air. He made it rain blood because of all of the strong heads he was about to send down into Hades. Now, on the other side, thank you. Oh, so close. Another Trojan failure. On the rise of the plain, there were all of the Trojans. They were gathered around huge Hector and blameless Polydamas. He's going to be important. Pay attention. And Aeneas, who the people honored like a god, and all of the sons of Antenor. It was Polybus and shining Agenor and Acamas. You know, he was the youngest, and he was a man like the immortals. But Hector was out in front with his perfectly round shield, and he was like an evil star that comes out from behind the clouds but then goes right back in behind the shadowy clouds. That's how Hector was now appearing in the front lines, but then giving orders to the rear guard. Hector, all in bronze, he shone like lightning, like the lightning of Father Zeus who carries the aegis. So now these two sides came against one another. They came against one another like reapers, like rows of reapers in the fields, cutting down swaths of grain, whether wheat or barley, heaping them on either side. That's now how the Trojans and the Achaeans rushed at one another and they cut each other down. Now the battle fell equally on all of their heads, and they rushed at each other like wolves. Not a single one of them thought about fear. And conflict, the goddess, she loved looking down at this. She was the only one now in the battlefield. All the other gods were not there. Those gods, they were just taking it easy, up in their homes, you know, the ones that were built up for them in the folds of Mount Olympus. And they were all really mad at Black Cloud Zeus, right? Because he wanted to give glory to the Trojans. But Zeus didn't care that they were mad at all. Zeus just sat up, away from the others, by himself, exulting in his own strength and looking down at the city of the Trojans and the Achaean ships and the flashing bronze and the killers and the killed. So as long as dawn was getting higher up in the sky, well, that's how long the thrown missiles hit their marks and men fell on both sides. But then it came to that time, you know this time when a woodcutter, there's a woodcutter guy, okay? And he is up in the woods, in the mountains, and he's like, I'm ready for lunch. And his hands have had their fill of cutting down the big trees, and his heart feels satisfied with all the work he's done so far. And all of a sudden, his thoughts just like really desire sweet food. Yeah, so it was lunchtime. It was at lunchtime that the Danaans, in all of their excellence, they finally broke through the Trojan ranks. they were calling out to one another, and it was Agamemnon, the son of Atreus. He was the first rushing forward, and he killed Bianor, the shepherd of the people. And he killed too Oileus, Bianor's buddy. He was a man who lashed the horses. Oileus jumped down out of his chariot to face Agamemnon, but Agamemnon hit him with the sharp bronze spear in the forehead, and Oileus's heavy bronze helmet and Oileus's bone couldn't hold it, but instead the spear, it just went straight through, spattering the brains inside the skull. So then he fell, and Oileus and Bianor, their chests gleamed because Agamemnon stripped them of their tunics. Next, it was going to be perfect because they're brothers and they were on the same stem. Then Agamemnon, he came across the two sons of Priam, Isis and Antiphus. You know, one was a bastard and one was legitimate. Isis was the charioteer, and he stood next to famous Antiphus. Once upon a time, Achilles had actually taken these boys prisoner. They were up in the foothills of Mount Ida and shepherding their flocks, and Achilles took them and tied them up with young willow shoots, and he ransomed them alive. But now Agamemnon came across them, and Isis, he hit under the right breast in the chest with his sharp spear. And Antiphus, well, he just hacked at him in his ear with his sword. And then he stripped the armor. That armor that he had recognized because, of course, he had seen it before when Achilles brought these two boys from Mount Ida, besides the swift ships. Now Agamemnon, he was like a lion that comes and takes the innocent young of a deer, of a fast deer, when they sleep, takes them in his terrible jaws, and the doe, even if she's nearby, she can't do anything about it because the terrible trembling has taken hold of her, and she is running. She is running far away through the thickets and the woods, sweating and straining, trying to get away from the force of the powerful beast. That's now how the Trojans were. They couldn't help these boys because they were running away from the Argives. Then it was Pysandros and Hippolochus. They were the two sons of Antimachus. Antimachus, who more than anyone else accepted all of the gold and the shining gifts that Paris, the husband of Helen with the good hair, had offered them, so that Antimachus always voted not to give Helen back to blonde Menelaus. So now these two, well, seeing Agamemnon, dropped the shining reins from their hands, and they panicked. And Agamemnon, he fell on them like a lion. And these two, in the same chariot car, they supplicated him from the chariot, "Please, son of Atreus, take us alive, and you will get a worthwhile ransom. Our father Antimachus, he has many treasures that lay in his house. He has gold and bronze and wrought iron, and he would be so delighted to give you countless gifts if he only could find out that we were still alive by the ships of the Achaeans." So they begged with gentle words, but the answer they heard was not gentle. So, you two are the sons of Antimachus. Antimachus. He's the one who, when Menelaus went with godlike Odysseus just to give a message to the Trojans, Antimachus was the one who voted there and then to kill Menelaus and never let him get back to the Achaeans. So now you will both pay for your father's outrage with your mutilation. That's what he said. And as Pysandros tried to get out of the chariot, Agamemnon stabbed him in the chest with the spear. And as Hippolochus went, he hacked off both of his arms from the neck and sent him rolling like a rolling pin through the crowd. Now Agamemnon went to where the chaos was densest, and all of the Achaeans, with their very nice shin guards, they came with him. So now it was infantryman who killed infantryman as he had to, running away. And it was cavalryman killing other cavalrymen. And it was the dust that was coming up from under the stampeding and thundering of horses' hooves and all of the sounds of men killing one another. And here it was Agamemnon, always running in and giving orders to the Danaans and killing. Now Agamemnon, he moved like an annihilating fire that moves through a primeval forest up in the mountains, and the winds blow it in every direction, rolling, and that the bushes are uprooted and roll in front of it, going in the force of the fire. That's now how the heads of the Trojans who were running away rolled in front of Agamemnon, the son of Atreus. And there were many, many strong-necked horses that were running, their empty chariots now rattling as they longed for their blameless charioteers. But their charioteers lied on the ground, now more loved by vultures than by their wives. But Zeus came and he took Hector. He got Hector just up and out from the dust and the man-killing and the blood and the confusion. But Agamemnon was always following, giving orders to the Danaans. And the Trojans, they were running through the plain. Now they had gotten as far as the fig tree at the tomb of Elos, who is the son of Dardanos. But they were still running towards the city. And now Agamemnon, he was shouting, roaring after them, his hands invincible, spattered with gore. But some of the Trojans reached the Scaean gates and the oak tree, and there they took a stand and they were able to hold fast. But some of the Trojans, they were still in the middle of the plain. They were running away now like cows running away from a lion in the dead of night, and that's where they meet sheer destruction. And the lion comes and breaks their necks with its terrible jaws, and after it's broken their necks, it gulps down all of their blood and all of their guts. Now there were many men who fell from their horses, some forward, some backwards, all at the hands of Agamemnon, the son of Atreus. Now Agamemnon, he would have made it all the way up to the high walls of the city itself. Except Zeus. Zeus, the father of men and of gods, he came down from the sky and sat down in the foothills of Mount Ida with all of the springs, and he called for Iris, the messenger with her golden wings. And he said, "Go now, Iris, quickly give Hector this message, that as long as he sees Agamemnon going among the ranks of men and killing them, then Hector should hold back from battle. He should order other men to go and fight their enemies in the melee. But when he sees Zeus, no, not Zeus, I'm Zeus. When he sees Agamemnon jump up on his horses, either hit by a spear or by an arrow, I'm still Zeus. This is important. When Hector sees Agamemnon jump up on his horses, either hit by a spear or hit by an arrow, that is when I, Zeus, grant him the power to kill. The power to kill until he reaches the good benched ships of the Achaeans. The power to kill until the sun sets and holy darkness falls. That's what he said. And Iris, with her feet like the wind, did not disobey, but right away went straight down from Mount Ida to holy Ilion. And she found Hector, shining Hector, the son of brilliant Priam. He was standing next to his horses and his well-made chariot. And she came up next to him and she said, Hector, you who are as much of a genius as Zeus himself is, Zeus the Father has now sent me to give you this message. As long as you still see Agamemnon raging in the ranks of men and killing people, then you yourself must hold back from the battle and order other men to fight their enemies in the melee. But when you see Agamemnon jump up on his horses, whether he has been hit by a spear or by an arrow, then Zeus grants you the power to kill until you reach the good benched ships of the Achaeans, until the sun sets and holy darkness falls. That's what she said, and Iris, with her fast feet, went away again. And right away, Hector jumped down to the ground from his chariot in all of his armor. He was balancing his 2 spears. He went all through the army, rousing everyone up again, once again waking the dreadful battle cry. And now the Trojans, they wheeled round. And they stood fast. And now the Argives, they strengthened their ranks, and they too made a stand. And it was Agamemnon who went far out in front. He wanted to be furthest out to kill people first. So, Muse, you have your house up on Mount Olympus. Could you tell me, though, who was the first to come up against Agamemnon? I mean, was it one of the Trojans, or was it one of their famous allies? It was Iphidamas. Iphidamas, who was a son of Antenor. But, you know, he grew up in Thrace, in fertile Thrace, which is the mother of all flocks. It was because he grew up in his maternal grandfather Chesis's house. Chesis raised him since the time he was little. And Chesis also had a daughter, Theano, with pretty cheeks. So it happened that Iphidamas, when he actually reached that age, you know, that glorious time of youth, that perfect moment of first manhood, that was when Chesis wouldn't let him leave. And instead, Chesis gave him his daughter to marry. So yeah, that's his aunt. It's like a Game of Thrones thing. And so Iphidamas went to win great glory to fight against the Achaeans. And he brought 12 beaked ships, and they all followed with him. And then they harbored at Percote, and they came to Ilion on foot. And now it was him that came up against Agamemnon, the son of Atreus. And Agamemnon's spear it missed him and went off sideways. So Iphidamus, he stabbed right under the breastplate and under the zone, which is one of those other layers. But it couldn't quite, even though he trusted in the heaviness of his hands, he couldn't get it through the zoster, the very intricate zoster war belt. But instead, the tip, it just bent back like lead against silver. And so Agamemnon, he just pulled that spear right back out, shook it from Iphidamus' hands, and then, like a lion, brought his sword down on his neck. And Iphidamus fell. But, he was sleeping the bronze sleep. He was an unhappy man, Iphidamus. He had left his wedded wife to be a helper to the city. And he hadn't even enjoyed her yet, even though he had given much for her. He had already given 100 cows, and he had promised to give 1,000 goats and 1,000 sheep, countless flocks, really. But now he was dead, and Agamemnon stole his life and took his beautiful armor back towards the Achaeans. But Coon, who was a famous man, he was also a son of Antenor. And when he saw his brother fall, there was a great grief that came over him. And so he sidled up next to Agamemnon, and he stabbed him with the spear right through the middle of the arm, beneath the elbow. So it went clean through. And Agamemnon shuddered when he saw the wound, but he was not about to let it stop him from the fight. So there was Coon dragging his brother's body by the foot, trying to call out to his companions, get it back into the crowd. But Agamemnon rushed at him with his wind-fed spear and stabbed him just under the knobbed shield, and then decapitated him so that his head fell on Iphidamus' body. So that's how the two sons of Antenor fulfilled their destiny at the hands of Agamemnon, the son of Atreus, and they sank down into the house of Hades. But now, as long as Agamemnon's wound was still flowing with the warm blood, then he was still going back through the ranks of men, killing through the spears and the swords and the thrown stones. But as soon as the wound started to dry up and the blood stopped flowing, well, then the pain started to come onto Agamemnon and his battle fury. It was pain like birth pangs, like the birth pangs that come on women. And guess what? Birth pangs are goddesses, the Elethui. They're the daughters of Hera, and they bring sharp pains onto women. And those are the kind of pains that started now to come onto Agamemnon's battle fury. And so he got up into his chariot and gave the charioteer a command to go back to the hollow ships. But first, he called out to the Argives, "Friends, leaders and counselors of the Argives, now you have to defend the seafaring ships, because Zeus is not going to let me fight the Trojans all day long." That's what he said, and he ordered the charioteer to whip the horses, and they flew back towards the hollow ships, the horses foaming at the chest, covered in dirt that their hooves kicked up as they carried the worn-out king away from battle. And Hector saw him leave. And right away he turned to the Trojans and the Lycians. Trojans, Lycians, Dardanians, spear fighters. Be men now. Remember your furious courage, because I have seen their best men leave the field. Now Zeus is giving me something to brag about. And if you turn your whole hoofed horses against the strong Danaans, then you'll have something to brag about too. That's what he said. And he stirred the heart and the battle fury in every man. Now Hector was like man slaughtering Ares as he stirred up his men. He stirred them up like a hunter stirring on dogs against a lion or against a wild boar. And Hector himself, he went through the front lines thinking his big thoughts. He was like a hurricane in force, one that comes down and hits and stirs up the purple sea. So who was the first and who was the last that Hector, the son of Priam, killed? First, it was Asios and Autonomous, and it was Opites. It was Dolops, the son of Clytius. And it was Agelaos and Opheltius. And it was Asimnios and Oros. And it was Hippodamus. He had a battle fury that would not quit. That's how Hector killed all of the rulers of the Danaans. And then he turned on the great crowd. He fell on them like a hurricane from the west that breaks up the south wind's clouds and roils up the sea so that it spits foam and every wave strikes and strikes again. That's how Hector fell on the heads of the Achaeans as he killed them and cut them down. And now it would have just been horrible. Now it would have been deeds that you couldn't have even described, except that Odysseus called out to Diomedes, the son of Tydeus. Son of Tydeus, what's happened to us? Where is our furious courage gone to? Come on, Pepon, stand with me. And now it would be such a shame if Hector took our hollow ships. And powerful Diomedes answered him and said, I will hold fast and I will be bold, but I do not think that our pleasure will last for long, because now Zeus wants to give the power to the Trojans rather than to us. That's what Diomedes said. And right away, no, can I have that one? Thank you. Right away, he struck Thymbraios right in the chest, underneath the left breast. And then Odysseus killed his charioteer Molion, who was an awesome sidekick. Now Diomedes and Odysseus, they turned like two boars that actually turn on the very dogs that have been hunting them. That's how they now turned against the Trojans, killing them and giving all of the Argives that have been running from brilliant Hector a breather. Now there were the two sons of Merops, Percotian Merops. Merops was the best seer there was, and he did not want to let his boys go to war, but they didn't listen to him. It was the black spirits of death that led them. So now spear-famous Tydeus' son, Diomedes, he killed and stripped them both. And then Odysseus, he killed Hippodamus, and he killed Hyperekos. And now Zeus, for a reason I can't quite comprehend as a scholar, Zeus stretches out the battle equally on both sides. So now they're just killing each other. But Diomedes, the son of Tydeus, he kills Agastrophus, who's the son of Pion. Agastrophus, he gets him right in the spear, with the spear in the hip. Agastrophus, okay, he didn't have any horses that he could run away with, because like an idiot, he had decided to give his chariot to his sidekick and then run into the front lines on foot. So that's how he lost his life. And now Diomedes was going to strip his armor. But meanwhile, Paris, who is also known as Alexander, the husband of Helen with the good hair, he is hiding behind a column by the tomb of Elos, the son of Dardanus, who was, he was a leader of the people way back. And he is aiming his bow at Diomedes. And Diomedes is stripping the body of Agastrophus. He strips the breastplate from his chest, and he strips the shield from his shoulders, and he strips the heavy helmet. But Paris puts his hand around the grip of the bow and aims, and his shot does not go off, but he hits Diomedes right through the flat of his foot, so that the arrow sticks in the ground. And Paris, he jumps out of his hiding spot, bragging, "I hit you!" I mean, I wish I would have hit you like in the lower belly or somewhere where you would die. But at least now I have given the Trojans a breather, those who have been running from the Argives like bleating goats in front of a lion. And Diomedes, he wasn't scared at all. And he answered, "You outrageous archer, with your pretty hair, you love staring at virgins." I mean, that's creepy, right? "I really wish that you would come at me with some real weapons. I mean, now you've just hit me in the foot and you're bragging like this. You're not going to stop, like I'm not stopping because of this. I mean, this is like a kid hit me or some woman hit me. It's like your arrows are the arrows of coward or of a nobody. It's really different with me, When I hit someone, even a little bit, well, they'll soon be lifeless. Soon their wives will tear their cheeks with grief. Soon their kids will be orphans, and their blood will redden the earth, and they will rot. And there will be many more carrion birds around them than women." That's what Diomedes said. So now Odysseus, who's spear famous, comes and stands in front of him to protect him, and Diomedes behind sits down and takes the arrow out, but as it pulls through the flesh, brings quite a lot of pain with it. So now he has to go order his charioteer to take him back to the hollow ships, and he's sad in his heart. So now Odysseus is left by himself. And all the Argives have run away out of fear. And so now Odysseus, he turns to his own hardy heart, and he says, "Oh man, what's going to happen to me? I mean, it'll be a really bad thing if I run away into the crowd, but it will be, I mean, wouldn't it also be just terrible if I got taken by myself? That would be even worse. Why am I talking to myself like this? I know that only cowards leave battle. And anyone who wants to be excellent, they hold fast. They stay put, whether they are going to hit someone or hit someone else. Or be hit, sorry. That's what he said to himself. And he actually roused his own spirit and his own heart. But all that time, the Trojans were coming. The Trojans were coming around him, and they were shutting him in. But they were sealing up their own fate. Because now Odysseus, he is like a wild boar in his den in the thicket that hounds and young men in their first bloom all come after, but they can hear his tusks sharpening on his lower jaws. All they can hear is the sound of the boar's gnashing teeth as they come around him, and he is furious, but they try to stand fast. But Odysseus, first he killed Deipides. He killed Deipides, hitting him just at the shoulder as he jumped down from his chariot. And then he killed Thoon. He killed Thoon and Anomos. And this plastic sucks. Oh, death. And then he killed Chersidamus. He killed Chersidamus as he was jumping down from his chariot, hit him with the spear right through the middle of the chest, so he fell on the dust, and his open palms grabbed handfuls of earth as he died. Next, he killed Charops. He was the son of Hippasos. Killed him with the sharp spear. He was the full-blood brother of rich Sokos. And Sokos, he came to defend his brother. And he called out to Odysseus, "Odysseus, they praise you so much for your tricks and for all of your work. But you know, today, well, you will have two fates. Either you will have beaten down both of Hippasos' sons with your spear, or you will be beaten down by my spear, and you will die." That's what he said. And he shoved his spear through Odysseus' perfectly round shield, and it went through his breastplate, and it scraped off all of the flesh along his ribs. But Pallas Athena wouldn't let the spear tip mix with Odysseus' guts. And when Odysseus realized it was not his end, he turned back towards Sokos. "You fool. I am not going to stop. I might have to stop fighting the Trojans, but you, all I see for you is slaughter and the black day of your death." And that's when Sokos tried to run away, turning, but Odysseus struck him right in the middle of the back with the spear, right between the shoulders, so that it went clean straight through his chest, and Sokos fell to the ground. Odysseus bragged over his body. "Brilliant Sokos, son of horse-breaking Hippasos. So it looks like the end of death found you. You didn't escape it, you fool. And now your mother and your father, they will never close your eyes, though you are dead. Now the birds will come and pluck your eyes out, and the beating of their wings will be all around you. Well, for me, if I die, the Argives will give me a proper burial. That's what he said, and he went to pull the spear out from his side, through his shield, and the blood spouted and spurted, and he was upset when he saw it. But then the Trojans saw Odysseus' blood, and they were circling him, and they closed in. Thanks so much, everyone, for coming, especially after our week off. And thank you also if you were able to fill out the surveys. I really appreciate it. I want to thank Bardipin and Ahmed, who is also our muse. Alex Martalogu, as always. Sam Windholz on the video. This week's awesome director, Sophie Gee. And please come back next week for Marie Berlizzo. Thank you, everyone. Please be careful walking around here. There might be tomato guts.